So thank you all for joining Carnegie-Stout Public Library this evening. It's really great to have people from all over the place be able to come to Dubuque, Iowa for this great program, and to be able to have an author that I absolutely love doing a program without having to do all of the airplanes and everything that normally happen. So I'm very pleased to welcome Farrah Rochon, the best-selling award-winning romance author and Louisiana native with more than 25 novels. If you missed the announcement before, this is being recorded, so if you don't want to be on YouTube, you can turn off your camera, or either way. Her most recent book that came out in 2020 was The Boyfriend Project. And later this year, very soon, coming up is going to be The Dating Playbook, which is the sequel follow-up to The Boyfriend Project. So if you've read the first book, you'll get to see Taylor's story next. And so you're not here to hear me, so let's turn it over to Farrah.
Hello, thank you for having me, Sarah. It seems like we've been planning this for quite a while. So it's fun that it's finally here. And thank you all so much for having me. I totally would have flown up to Dubuque. I've never been to Iowa, but I'm so busy that I probably wouldn't have been able to fit it. So it's probably best that we can do this via Zoom. So
yeah, you had to transfer planes at least once, probably twice.
Yeah, coming from New Orleans, we usually do. So I'm sure, Dallas would have been in my future if I was coming, but that's okay. We're here now. And we do have a ton of great questions. Thank you all so much. Those in the audience, thank you all so much for submitting the questions, early. And we can get right to it.
All right, excellent. So these questions are in no particular order. So we'll just start with the top here with how many drafts of your books do you write before you reach your final draft?
Usually the way I usually write a very just horrible first draft that I will spit out in about a month or so. And then I will spend maybe 2 to 3 months completely rewriting that draft. I usually get rid of about 80% of that stuff that it's complete dreck. Believe me, it's just horrible what I first put out. And I will spend a few months writing that. And then I do another draft and then I turn it in. So I think we're up to 3. And then I have revisions from my editor. So that's 4, and then a final. So probably I go through 5 or so normally. But I this very year, just a few months ago, changed the way I write books, which was extremely scary for me. I slowed down a little and started writing better words the first time. So I'm allowing myself to go back and revise as I write, which is just something that it would give me the shakes to even think about doing that before. So it's been different, but it's working so far. So we'll see how long I keep it up or if I go back to my old chaotic ways. But for now, I'm hoping that it only takes me 2 drafts, or let's say 2 drafts and a very good pass through. We'll see. Like I said, for now it's working. Hopefully it continues.
I mean, something new is always exciting.
And scary.
Let's see. I think this one's a good follow-up for that. What did you edit out of this book or whichever book that you wish you could have kept?
Again, we're talking about the Boyfriend Project here. But I can tell you with the Boyfriend Project, I don't know how many people in the audience have read it, but there's a scene at the beginning, and hopefully that scene is in there in some place, where Daniel is jogging. I think I have a small piece of it. Daniel's jogging near Samaya's house, and he thinks, you know, if she finds him there, he'll be a stalker. She'll think he's a stalker or something like that. And I just remember that the original scene was a lot longer and had some really witty writing in it. At least I thought it was witty. Who knows? It may not have been. But I just remember, you know, when my editor said, I think we need to change things around because you actually knew that Daniel, the way we have it now is that you don't really know what Daniel's profession is until a few chapters in. It wasn't originally like that. So we changed it so that you didn't really know what his profession was, and it was better. But I had to get rid of that, the parts of that scene that I really liked. So that was hard. And when it comes to Taylor's book, I probably took out half of that book. I seriously have. We actually, in the book, there's a deleted scene. They put it as a bonus. And we had a hard time figuring out which of like the 15 or so deleted scenes to even put there. So much of that book I changed completely. So I could probably do an entire second book with everything that I took out of that one. But that's how the way it goes. Whatever makes the book, you know, the best it can be. And sometimes it's getting rid of stuff.
Do you ever get to save those pieces and turn it into a new book? Is that sort of the spark of a new book?
You know, I did that years ago when the first book that I sold to Harlequin. I had a nice career with Harlequin. I did 16 or so books with them. And the very first book that I did, it was supposed to be a regular mass market paperback size 80,000 word book. And it had, it was my football series, and it had like a side couple with the sister of the hero of the first book. And when I sold it to Harlequin, I had to change that 90,000 word book into a 55,000 word book. So I basically had to take all of those scenes, and it eventually became the fourth and final book in that series. But I didn't use a lot of the scenes, but I knew their story based on what I'd written. I would love to take those scenes as well. There's one of them when they're cooking, and I always think about, you know, how I should give that as a bonus somewhere, because I love that scene too. There's so many. I call it the parking lot. Every book gets a parking lot, and I park the stuff that just can't stay. I park it in there just so I can sometimes go back and read it myself or something. I hate throwing words away. So it's my way of not throwing my words away completely.
I like that term, parking lot. Let's see. Do you have any advice for those who are looking to start writing?
There's so much. I think, for one, know why you're doing it. You know, I think if you want to write, you're going to write no matter what. If you want to publish, that may be a better way to think about it. Someone who wants to write in order to be published, I really do think that in this day and age, you have so many options that you have to decide what is it you want. You know, what's the goal of your writing and how you're going to go about doing it. So, but just if it is someone who just wants to write just because they have that, you know, that writer's bug bothering them to do it, just do it, you know. But if you want to take it to that next level, my first piece of advice is always to learn your craft. I'm very big on craft books. I'm very big on workshops and just learning the craft of writing, for one. Taking it seriously and knowing that point where it's going to go from being a hobby to being a potential career or second career. And just, you know, having those goals laid out so that you're not necessarily wasting your time is not really the right way to put that, but just so that you're going to get a satisfying end to all the work that you're putting in. So first, decide what you want from it. Do you want to be published with it, or is it just a hobby? Either one, and then learn your craft. That's the best advice I can give. Learn your craft first.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Let's see. Do you feel like you are constantly changing your writing and the topics to keep up with the ever-changing world?
Not really, because some advice that I got years ago from another author was to never chase trends. Because the trends are going to, by the time you finish the book, that trend will probably be over. So I don't really chase things. With the Boyfriend Project, I do have a lot of current language in there. Like I mentioned things like Instagram, and in the next book, their video shows up on TikTok of my couple, there. So it was walking that fine line of, will these things be here in 10 years, or would it read to those people? Like if I said that they were on MySpace, if you put that in, if you read a book now, it's so dated. So it is kind of, I did walk that line of how much should I mention and how much shouldn't I? But I don't just overall, I try not to chase the trends and just write the book that I feel like reading at the moment. I think you just have to do that, because things will change like that. Facebook will show up and push MySpace out of the way.
And there's no way to predict that sort of thing
Exactly.
Unless you're super genius.
Yeah, or you have a pandemic that comes and changes the world. So just yeah.
Okay. When you're preparing to write, do you prefer to do hands-on research? Like, do you go to the place that you're writing about and drink the kombucha? Or are you more of an academic research person where you read about the thing and look it up on Wikipedia and that sort of thing?
Well, I do both. I love to travel. Anyone who has followed me pre-pandemic knows that, most of my social media is me in this place of the world, in this place. And I do, I'm actually planning a trip to Austin in a few weeks. So that should answer the question right there. I do like the hands-on research, but you can do so much with the internet. I do have kombucha in the refrigerator right now. And I had it before, but I started drinking it with Taylor's book because that's her thing. And I just wanted to channel her. But I can tell you again, for those who have read The Boyfriend Project, I went back to Austin. I used to live there, but it was 10 years ago, and it's changed a lot in that time. I visited it after I'd written the book, after I'd written the first draft. But that scene where they are in the botanical gardens, that scene never would have had that much of the botanical gardens in there and just so much detail if I had not gone to Austin and visited, because I looked up the botanical gardens, pictures everywhere, did the Google where you got the little yellow man that can show you around, the Google Live, whatever it's called. But it's just, there's a difference in looking at it, 2D on your screen and just being there. So I try as much as I can. I try to actually visit places, because you'll find things that are off the beaten path, that people just wouldn't know about. And yeah, I think it just makes for a richer book. So I do try to do as much hands-on research as I can.
We just had a little chat pop up saying they loved the Austin references as someone who used to live there, and Amy's ice cream is awesome. So your research was spot on.
Yeah, you'll get Amy's in book 2. I don't know. Do I mention Amy's in book 1? Yeah, I do. Shows you how much I love Amy's, because yeah, I do mention it in book 1, and they go back to Amy's in book 2.
It's the library closing announcement. I'm sorry if it's very loud for everyone. Do you have any favorite Twitter or internet drama stories of bad dates?
Not really bad dates, but I did get the idea for this series on Twitter, and it was this several years ago. It was a set of people who were on an airplane, and this other, what I realize now, is a very creepy person, kind of like live tweeted, these people just sat there, next to each other. They seem to be getting along really well. And it was like 2 a.m. I was just scrolling through, and I was, refreshing. I was like, give me another tweet. What's happening with them now? It was ridiculous. And that's where I got the idea to even, have this live tweet thing happen in the book. But I realized now that that was so not cool to do. But in a way, I'm happy they did, because it gave me the idea for the story. So that's it's not really a bad date drama type thing, but it was a spark for the series.
I know exactly that feeling, because I have also sort of, I don't know, voyeurism secondhand. It's really, it's hard to look away.
It is. That's the thing. And so many other people are doing it. It's just horrible. That shouldn't even be the excuse. But I do it. Sorry.
Let's see. Do you have any writing rituals or ways you get through days when writing doesn't come very easily?
I do. I'm a writer who I like to say that I can put myself into my writing mode no matter where I am. But if I have the ideal writing place, which is here in my office, I usually just start my day by diffusing some essential oils to energy and things that just help me focus. I have several blends that I use. I gotta have my coffee. I have to have the room completely dark, which is why I have the blackout curtains. I usually have a hoodie on my head, because I like to create a literal cave. People, writers say they're going into their writing cave. I literally have it's like I'm in a cave, and it's just me focused on the book. And that's usually my ritual. My ritual. I will just say a prayer before I start, and then start my day and just try to work. And I do take walks. I take walks throughout the day. I usually write 25-minute, little chunks of time with a 5-minute walk between. And that's how I try to get through the day.
I'm glad you're getting some sunshine.
Yeah.
Let's see. What do you like the most about writing romance? Is it your favorite genre to read? And have you ever considered writing other genres of books?
Well, okay, first one, what do I like writing? What do I like the most about writing romance? And especially in these times, I love making sure that people have that happily ever after, This past year, I think I've gotten more feedback from people saying how they turn to romance. Some people who had never read a romance before, just because they knew that they wouldn't feel bad after, no matter what you put the characters through, they're going to get that happily ever after in the end, or at least happy for now. It's going to be uplifting in some way. So that's definitely what I love most about the genre. It is my favorite genre to read, even though I do love suspense and thrillers, and that's usually my audiobooks. I do listen to a lot of audiobooks, and those are usually my suspense thrillers. But I also like romantic suspense too. I love just having the romance in there. As for other genres, I have considered writing suspense thrillers. My very first book was actually this horribly written, John Grisham type book. I have nothing to do with the law. I know nothing about the law, but I was going to put John Grisham, I was going to knock him off his pedestal. This was Farrah in college. Okay. I I won't do that. However, I just wrote my first YA, which was a very, big departure for me. You see Princess Tiana in the background here. It's actually a Princess Tiana story for Disney Hyperion that'll be out next year. So it was so much fun to write. It was different. It was like a great palate cleanser. I had so much fun writing it. So that's I have another book that I'll be writing for them to be not announced yet. So I can't say what characters, but I like writing the YA a lot. So maybe that's something that I may do more in the future. Who knows? But I'm having fun with the romance. I've been doing that for a while, and yeah.
The chat box is very excited about this and think it's very cool. So I think there's definitely an audience for it.
Good. It's a fun book. If anyone reads the Disney Twisted Tales series, where it's a twist on all of the, it's mostly the princesses, but some of the other books, it's basically taking the original story and twisting it in a certain way. And it's a fun series. So I'm very lucky that I get to write in it.
Is it a little bit extra fun to get to work with Disney? Because I've heard that you're a big Disney fan yourself.
I am I'm a ridiculous, like Tiana would be there even if I was not writing her book. And everything in this room is Disney. I'm a huge Disney fan. And yeah, to be able to write, play around with Disney characters it's a dream. It truly is. It's a dream.
Awesome. Let's see. Do you let friends or family read your work before it is finished?
I have a critique group that I just realized that this makes 20 years that we've been meeting, which, I kind of forget that I'm not 20. So the fact that I've been meeting with them for 20 years, yeah. But they usually read, at this point, it's only maybe the first 3 chapters if I have the proposal, because everybody's just so busy now and I need them to do it much quicker than what we used to do. When I could take a year and a half to write a book and have them just do it once, one chapter a month, that won't work. But they will read the first 3 chapters or so, give me feedback, help me to plot some things if I'm having issues. My sister used to read for me. Unfortunately, I lost her back in the end of 2019. But she would probably be the only one who I would allow to read the entire book. And even sometimes she would get too busy to where she couldn't do it. So at this point, it's basically me and my editor. Thank goodness we work so well together. And my, everything that's good about these books is because my editor helped me to make it better. So I'm very happy I have such a great team at Grand Central Forever and at Disney too. I've just gone through my first editorial process with them, and I just thought I struck gold. 2 great editors I'm working with at this time. So they can just, like I said, make your book. They really can. So
yes, it's you're the ideas and the words and everything, but yeah, there's a whole team behind books, which incredible. How long did it take you to get published? Any interesting stories about that journey?
I had kind of what would be considered the normal. It took me about 5 years from when I decided that I was, going to do this as a career, which was about a week after I finished grad school, and my dad has not forgiven me. But I joined RWA, Romance Writers of America back then, the local chapter. And like I said, with craft, I really took the time to hone my craft. Was able to get an agent, and he sold my first book, like I said, about 5 years. It was the 5th book I'd written. I still have those other 4 books. They were actually close. I had a 3-book series that was very close to being sold to Harlequin. And then when it didn't sell, I'd written another one, and that's what eventually sold. But that's basically what you hear from a lot of writers. It took them about 5 years. Once I did get published, it was like I was baptized by fire, because that publisher went like imploded. And, just look up Dorchester Publishing if you want to know the dirt in that. But yeah, it was a lot that happened in those first few years. But this industry, you'll find people who have gone through so much in this industry, and I just figure after 13, 14 years, it's kind of typical.
What is your favorite part about writing a book or the writing process?
I love, it's hard. It's hard to answer that question because I do love just the initial part. Once I've come up with the idea and I'm plotting. I know we have a question about plotting, and I might answer it in this because I'm a huge plotter. I basically plot out my entire book before I start writing actual words. And that's kind of like the most creative part. One thing I love to do is lock myself in a hotel room for a few days with just, a bunch of poster boards and sticky notes and my Sharpie markers. And I just put myself in that story and exhaust myself of all the ideas for this story. And I love that part because I just get to put out all kinds of wacky ideas. A lot of them won't make it into the book, but it's kind of when it's the fun part. Not that the writing isn't fun. The actual writing itself, making the characters come to life, in that first draft stage where I just get to put the story out, that's fun too. What I'm doing now, where it's, I'm kind of writing it and then polishing it in the same day, which, like I said, is a little different. I do find that I'm kind of enjoying that too. So it's a good thing that I like this job. I do find, now I will complain if you see me on Twitter, with some kind of like sad face emoji or just like, oh, this story is driving me crazy. I'm still enjoying it, even though it drives me just, bananas most of the time. I'm still enjoying it. So I do enjoy all of it. Nothing's better than that writing the end, though. Knowing that it's done, that's the best.
That's very cool. Should we be picturing like full conspiracy theory with strings, or are you like making detailed timelines and like family trees and stuff? Or
all of it.
Nice.
If I could show you, you just imagine all colored Post-it notes. I go through so much, and I just do everything on those trifold like science project boards. And I basically have the entire book plotted out. So if you ever saw one of my trifolds, you wouldn't have to read the book because I've got the entire plot there for you. So I try to keep them locked up. But that's how I write. I need to know that story. I actually consider that kind of my first draft, and then I call the other writing, it's like, that's the skeleton. And I'm just fleshing it out once I actually start writing words. But that really is how I view my writing process.
Cool. As a Black writer, have you felt similar pressures to those Samaya faces in her IT career to be more than perfect?
Yeah, absolutely. Before indie publishing was a thing, well, it's always been a thing, but it was very cost prohibitive in the early stages. You had writers like Elin Harris, who put all of that money into it and had 5,000 books in their, garage. It cost a lot to e-publish, or just to indie publish. So you pretty much only had the few publishers who were publishing Black romances. And I was lucky enough to get in with one of those publishers. So at least I got my foot into the door. But there was always that pressure of, if my book flops, will they use that as an excuse not to publish another book? Because I'd seen it before. It was one of the reasons that the only place that most Black writers could get published were the ones that actually had dedicated lines, because a lot of the other publishers, they would say, well, we tried this author and it didn't work. How many other books by white authors failed, but they didn't stop publishing white authors. But they used that excuse for Black authors a lot. So you did have that pressure of knowing that your book had to do well, because you could actually hurt someone else's career by, if it didn't. Of course, now with indie publishing, you have so many writers who are able to show the publishing industry, just how well the book can sell if you do it well enough and give books a chance. So thank goodness for that. But yeah, it was a lot of pressure, and it continues to be a lot of pressure to do well, because you want to lift other writers up. So
with the growing popularity of romance on TV and in movies, including an option for the Boyfriend Project, which of your books would you most like to see adapted?
Of course, I would love it if they would exercise the option on the Boyfriend Project and make that into a movie. I want the whole series, sure. But if I had to pick, I would actually go with the one series that people actually can't even really read right now because the books are out of print. But I have a series that I did for Harlequin. It was called my Bayou Dream series, and it's 6 books set in small town Louisiana. I kind of talk about it in terms of Queen Sugar, because Queen Sugar is actually filmed like 10 minutes away from here. But it has that feel of just a small town on the Louisiana Bayou, kind of like what I grew up in. And I just think that it would make a great just series. There's a lot of drama. It all starts when someone finds it's like a town that's kind of experienced hard times because a neighboring town has an outlet mall that opens, and it has taken business away from all of the local mom and pop shops. And then they find a room that was used on the Underground Railroad in the old town's like courthouse or something like that. And they use it to help bring tourism to their town and revitalize it. And I just would love to see, and like I said, it's 6 books. That all happens in the first book, but it's 6 books about different people in the town. I would love to see that turned into a series. I have to put them back to I have to publish them. I have the rights to them, and they're just sitting on my computer because I haven't had time to put them out myself. Eventually, I even have great covers made for them. So hopefully by next year, I'll have those books so people can actually read them again. But yeah, I love that Bayou Dream series.
Well, I'm sold. I want to read it. That sounds great.
Eventually.
So with the Boyfriend Project, are there any actors that you can imagine playing those roles in a movie or TV, or do you cast actors when you're writing? Is that part of your plotting process?
It actually has been for this book, and the people that I cast are not the people that will probably, be in the movie if they were to eventually make it, because I have no idea if those people can act. Basically, I just look for the face. But of course, I've had, I have a group on Facebook, my little fan club, and we've talked casting and things like that. And people mentioned this beautiful actress her name is Ryan Destiny. And she plays on a show on Fox called Star. And when someone mentioned her name, I had no idea who she was, I'll be honest. But I looked her up and I thought she could definitely play Samaya. She just has this, no nonsense air about her. And I think that she would be perfect. Daniel, on the other hand, he's actually, I won't say he's based on, but the person that I found for him is a football player, ex-football player named Will Demps. It's actually his face on the cover. I sent them the picture and they drew his face. So if he ever sees it and thinks, wow, that looks like me. Yes, Will Demps, that is you. But I don't know if Will Demps can act at all. But someone said that Rome Flynn, I think his name is Rome Flynn. He was on the show How to Get Away with Murder. And he's done a couple other things that I can't remember, but I think I know that he acts at least. And I think that he would do a good job as Daniel. So those would be my two. If this ever gets made into a movie, Muse Entertainment. I know they're not here, but I'm still saying it. Muse Entertainment, if you actually do it, those are the two actors I want.
Well, maybe we'll tag them or something in YouTube.
Yeah.
Are there any other authors, books that you would love to see adapted for a movie or TV?
So many. So many. My friend Kwana Jackson, does she write those? She either writes those books as Kwana Jackson or K.M. Jackson. I can't remember. But I think her Remem knit series it was actually just optioned. And, it's about 4 foster brothers, who take over their foster mother's yarn shop in Harlem, New York. And I just think it would make such a great movie because I love all 4 brothers in there. I can't wait for her to get the rest of the books done. But I just think the concept is so cute, and she really makes Harlem feel like a small town. That's what I love about that book, the neighborhood, it just feels like my small hometown. So I would love to see that. Alyssa Cole's series that she wrote, the series that she wrote for Kensington, the League, Loyal League series, because it's kind of based on a real, slaves who went back and for the Union. I would love to see that. And also there's a book coming out, Sisters in Arms by Kaya Alderson. And it's a fiction book, but it is based on the only all-Black, all-woman regiment in the Army during World War II. And I recently read it. It doesn't come out, I think it comes out later this year, maybe in August or September of this year. But it's a little known, not many people know that there was this all-female, all-Black regiment in the Army. And it's so good. And the whole time I was reading, I was thinking, this needs to be a movie. This needs to be a movie. It's like history that people need to know, but also just this fantastic story. So yeah, those are the ones. I want all of them to be, make everything the movie for me. But those 3, I would love to see made into movies.
Thank you for the reading suggestions. I can second Real Men Knit. I just finished that and it was really great. And yeah. I'm really glad to hear that there are going to be more in that series.
Yeah.
Let's see. We've got 2 more left on the list, and then I'll unmute everyone so that you can throw out more questions. So we've got, what inspired you to write?
I've always written. I've always written, and this is going to sound awful, but it's true. I've always been a liar. As a small child, apparently I've always made up stories, lies, and at least I get paid to lie. But yeah, apparently I always did make up these elaborate stories. I did it when I stole money from my grandmother to buy some cheese puffs from the store. Apparently I made up this big elaborate story about how the money went missing I was not the best. So kind of like making up stories has always been a part of me. So I guess there's nothing else I really could have done. I mean, my degrees are in psychology, so try to figure that out. But I've always been a reader as well. And I don't know, it's just something. I was the kid in high school that used to love it when they gave us an essay test. I would secretly like, yes, while everyone else was groaning because I knew I could write my way to an A always. So it's just, I think it was just something I knew I was going to do. And I kind of just went to school to make my parents like, look, I got this just in case it doesn't work out, but I'm going to do this. Kind of always knew I would.
That's awesome. I mean, I guess you could have been a spy, maybe?
I could have been a spy, or I could have been a thief. Still stealing,
That is a career.
My grandmother. Apparently. I don't know. They told me I was like 4 or 5 years old. Back when they would let a 4 or 5-year-old walk to the corner store, apparently. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't believe I just like admitted to that.
If you want, I can edit it out of the recording. Technical difficulties. Okay, last question here. What books by yourself or other authors do you recommend readers pick up next? And I know you've already thrown some out there, but if you have others you want to talk about.
Gosh, again, so many. Because I've been very lucky in that I've been reading books for quotes. So a lot of the books are upcoming books. Some that are out now, I can say Priscilla Olivares's Anchored Hearts. It's a part of her Keys to Love series. In this time when we're still not really getting out there and traveling, she will take you to Key West in this series. I love it. It's set there. Abby Jimenez has her book Life's Too Short. It's the 3rd book in a series that she's doing. And this is one of those books where you think, thank goodness I know this is a romance, because it will put you through the ringer. She's so funny, but I cried, I laughed. I cried, I laughed. I sobbed, I laughed. In the end, it's, you're going to be uplifted, but my gosh, it's one of those where be ready to like really cry. But it really is so good. So Life's Too Short. The title kind of like gives you a hint. Let's see. Another one that I read that's coming out later this year is Julie Murphy's If the Shoe Fits, which is a twist on the Cinderella. It's actually a book by Disney. I got to read an early copy of it, but it's a reality TV show twist on the Cinderella story. Lots of fun. And if you read Dumpling, you know her writing style. It's just very witty, and yeah. So those are a few. There's like so many more out there. I know.
There are definitely always more books than there are time to read them. So
yes. Oh, one more. I can't believe I forgot. I'm sorry. But if you like historicals, Denny S. Bryce's book, Wild Women in the Blues, which is set in 1920s jazz era. It's kind of like a dual timeline set in the present day and then brings you back to the 1920s. So good. So good if you like that era.
Sometimes I lose my mute button. But that cover for that book is just so beautiful.
I know.
It jumps off the shelves at me every time I see it.
Yeah, it's frameable. It really is.
All right. So if anyone wants to unmute themselves and chime in with a question, or if you want to throw something in the chat box, we have about 15 minutes left. If you want to join in, you're welcome to.
Don't be afraid. I don't bite, nor do I steal anymore, so. Cannot believe.
Just don't throw your social security number out there.
No.
No one should ever on Zoom.
No. No questions?
All right. Well, we're waiting. I'll take an opportunity to talk up some other library programs.
Yes.
This is the first in a series of romance author events that we're getting to have this summer. In June, on June 9th, author Meryl Wilsner, who wrote Something to Talk About last year, they will be coming and doing a talk. So sign up to that, and I'll pop the sign up links into the chat box here. And then on August 5th, author Mia Sosa will be here to talk about The Worst Best Man, which also came out last year. So definitely sign up for both of those. And if you just love clicking links, I'd very much appreciate it if you click this third link and take the brief anonymous online survey that the library puts out. This helps us to plan future events. Oh, we got a question in the chat. Any thoughts or experiences on NaNoWriMo?
Oh, yeah, sure. I've attempted a lot. Uh, one thing I like about NaNoWriMo is that it just, this very solitary career as a writer. It's that one time a year where you have just so many people doing it. And I know they have like Camp NaNoWriMo to do it, but I'm like the purist that just thinks November is NaNoWriMo. So I always go in with, the intention of doing it, because I did the whole write a book in a month. I kind of did that all the time. I used to write 4 books a year for Harlequin. I did a 2.5-year stretch where I wrote like 14 books and novellas. So I would write a book in a month all the time and then just take a few months to revise. But I think if that's your style, because I've had one of my critique group members, she tried to do NaNoWriMo and it completely stomped her because it just wasn't her style to just throw out a book that way. But if it does mesh with your writing style, I absolutely love it. I love going, on the chat and learning. That's how I met area writers, in my area they didn't write romance. So I didn't meet them at my local RWA group, but I was able to meet them because of NaNoWriMo. It's just a great way to connect with people that are doing the same thing that you're doing, that your family might not really understand, or think it's just this little hobby you're dabbling in. I like Nano.
It's definitely it either works for you, it doesn't, that's for sure.
Yeah, it really, yeah. And if it doesn't, don't feel pressure to do it.
You have to do what works for you, that's for sure. Let's see, we had another question come in. Any good craft books to help with writing romance specifically?
So probably my favorite one for romance is Gwen Hayes's Romancing the Beat. That is what it's like. I think it's Romancing the Beat is what it's called. And I use it for every book, so I should know the title. But it breaks down, you have so many books that are, just, you have things like Save the Cat and The Hero's Journey, all of these things that just give you the normal structure of writing fiction. But what Gwen does is she gives you that same structure in terms of romance. And it gives you all of these romance beats that, if you were to take a book, this is something I recommend to take a book, maybe one that you know really well, or even one that you don't, and try to find those same beats. Because even though I hate the word formulaic, there's a formula to every genre. A mystery is going to have these certain things that happen. It's all about the voice and how you do, how you present your story. But, in the romance genre, you're going to have that first meet. You're going to have, these beats. And I really love how she does it, because it's written in a way that's just very easy to follow. I always use it after I've written my book as like a check to make sure, am I hitting all the beats? Did I really get this, that is it coming through? So that's probably my top romance specific craft book by a long shot, really.
You had the title perfect. double
Okay,
checked
good.
it.
I know it has a cute cover with the lady type beat on it, but Romancing the Beat is,
We had a very long question come in. The other day on Twitter, Beverly Jenkins tweeted about the pressure from readers to write fast and write often. In the past, writers could get away with longer gaps in between projects. What are your thoughts on writing fast and often? Any connection? Oh no, I lost my spot. Sorry, I have very large font and scrolling messes me up. Any connections to binge culture and reader expectations, or is this what the industry expects? Or is this what the industry expects from authors?
yeah, it is. It's become, and I think it's because there are so many, the thing with indie authors is that if someone can write fast, they can put those books out every other month and people will read them. And I am always blown away because I could not write. There are some indie authors who will consistently put books out and they're good books. And I'm so jealous because you will not get, if I were to put something out every other month, it will be crap, let me tell you. So, but for those who can, more power to them. But it does put the pressure on traditionally published books and authors and the publishers to get that out because you just the timeline. I'm working on a book that's going to be published next summer. I think that's when London's book comes out. I think it's like June or July next year. Back when I was indie publishing, because I've been hybrid for a while where I was doing both, but I took about a 3-year span where I just indie published. Yeah, in that same amount of time, I would have put out 3 books at least. It would have been maybe 3 full lengths or 3 fulls and a novella. And it's hard for publishing just because of how it works, traditional publishing, to keep up with that pace. But I see that they are expecting writers to do more, produce faster, and kind of with every genre, not just romance. I have a friend who writes a mystery series, and she's used to 1 book a year, but they're trying to get her to do it every 8 months, So yeah, I think it is the binge. I think a lot of people will wait because they want the entire series to come out before they read them. I hear that all of the time. So there's kind of it has a little hamster wheel feel to it. But then I also think that COVID it knocked everybody off kilter and, people they couldn't write. So it took them longer and they realized that, sorry, there are just some things where you can't produce. And when the world seems like it's on fire, you can't do it. So we're still kind of in this stage of, are we going to ramp it up and try to get books out again or what? So, but good question. I missed that tweet because I'm trying to stay off Twitter as much as possible as I work on these 2 books that I'm writing.
Twitter can really suck you in, that's for sure. Let's see. Do we have any other questions this evening? Okay. Well, if we do, how can people reach out to you if they have something?
As much as I should not be on there, I am always on Twitter. But people can always, find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, which is like my happy place. I'm much better on Instagram, or just at farrah@farrahrashaan.com, of course. I'm always there to answer questions. Writers out there aspiring writers who, have a question or something, I'm there. And yeah, you can reach me there. You'll just see a whole bunch of things about the Dating Playbook because a lot has dropped this week about
4 chapters. Oh my gosh.
Yes, you can read the first 4 chapters on NetGalley. I got my very first Guard review ever from Kirkus. And a lot of things that are down the pike. So it's like obnoxiously all of my social media right now is about the Dating Playbook, but you know, it's kind of like how it should be, I think. I worked hard, so I do want people to read it and hopefully enjoy it. So, but find me on social media. I am on there way too much. You always see me.
Excellent. Okay.